Coming up on the Angus Report, an update on antibiotic use in animal agriculture.
The Center for Agriculture, Science and Technology released a report on farm animal welfare.
Perfect your swing at this year's annual Angus Foundation Golf Tournament.
And we recap the biggest ever Raising the Bar conference.
This is the Angus Report. Hello and welcome to the Angus Report. I'm Bob Cervera.
And I'm Clint Mefford.
Our top news this week. Randall Singer, an epidemiology professor at University of Minnesota, has a keen focus on antibiotic use in animals. He has almost 20 years of experience studying antimicrobial resistance in bacteria, and he shared his expertise at the Animal Agriculture Alliance Stakeholder Summit earlier this month. He was on a team of experts that recently conducted a survey to investigate the impacts of producing livestock RWA, or raised without antibiotics. 565 veterinarians, producers, and others involved in raising broilers, turkeys, swine, beef, and dairy cattle responded and cited a host of concerns, from animal health and welfare to food and safety. Singer explains some of the survey results.
When they were asked specifically about the impacts on production and management, increases in mortality, increases in culling or condemnation, those were identified uniformly across the species, including beef. Those are by those who are actually experienced in raising animals without antibiotics. If there is a net increase in morbidity and mortality related issues, that should be a serious concern with any agricultural practice. And what was most, I think, for us enlightening and perhaps disconcerting was that all of the respondents, whether you be RWA, raised without antibiotic, or conventional, and regardless of your commodity, said that animal health and welfare were significantly negatively impacted. And yet, when they were asked about what they think the customer of their product believes, uniformly they said that they believed that their customers think that animal health and welfare are being significantly improved by raising without antibiotics. That disparity in that response, the actual experience versus the opinions of or perceptions of the customer, that's a communication gap that we need to figure out if it's real, and if so, how to educate the customers, these retailers, about these impacts of RWA production.
Visit animalagalliance.org for more highlights from the Stakeholder Summit.
The Animal Agriculture Alliance Stakeholder Summit shed light onto public interest in animal care and handling. This was reinforced in a new report on farm animal welfare from the Council for Agricultural Science and Technology. Candace Croney, a co-chair for the task force that prepared the report, says there's a greater need to communicate science-based research to consumers. That's because there are few objective information sources on animal welfare visible to the public. And oftentimes, consumers source their animal welfare information from special interest groups like the Humane Society of the United States or People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. The report listed animal housing, impacts of globalization, antimicrobial resistance, economics of animal welfare, and consumer attitudes as priorities for future research. Further research in those areas will help to inform a concerned public and shape effective policy.
How you manage weeds can make a big difference in your pasture productivity. Kevin Bradley, a plant sciences professor at the University of Missouri, explains how producers can begin better weed management practices today.
One of the most common mistakes when it comes to weed management in pastures is you could go out here today and spray to kill some of the weeds that are here present. But that might not have been your biggest weed problem. Your biggest weed problem might come up a month from now and will not be affected by the herbicide you just sprayed. So you really need to know what you're targeting. The number one issue I've seen is we don't really know what we're targeting. What is your biggest weed problem? And what are some of the factors that farmers need to consider before they spray? There are several. Number one, any herbicide that you spray is almost certainly going to kill your legumes. You have to make that decision right up front. Number two, every herbicide has a grazing or haying interval. For most of the ones that we spray in Missouri pastures that are just beef cattle producers, it's not an issue, but you still need to check that and make sure as to when you can harvest and when you can release cattle in there. And a big one, number three, I would say is price. we can correlate weed density and weedier pastures with soils that aren't maintained as good as they should be. So I think we could see a lot of improvement in less weedy pastures by just doing things that are good sound management for the soil. And our data shows that. We're showing, a certain number of weeds per acre in a pasture that has lower soil fertility, and much fewer in a pasture that has higher soil fertility. So those numbers vary, but that's a pretty definite trend that we've seen.
Talk with your local extension agent for more information on weed and forage management.
Predators including black bears, bobcats, gray wolves, and mountain lions are making a comeback in the Midwest. Centuries ago, many of those predators were native to Midwestern states. However, urbanization pushed them out of the region. Now Wisconsin and Illinois have allowed limited bobcat hunting due to a growing population. And black bear sightings have been much more common in Iowa and Illinois over the past decade. Illinois Department of Natural Resources Wildlife Disease Program Manager Doug Dufford says that doesn't mean bears are making their home in either state, but it could just be a matter of time. Dufford reminds farmers and ranchers that livestock depredation is rare, but it's important to be mindful of where those predators could travel.
Although the agriculture industry has experienced plenty of consolidation over the past few decades, there's one sector that remains relatively untouched. According to USDA Economic Research Service data, beef cow herd sizes have seen very little consolidation. The midpoint beef cow herd was 89 cows in 1987, a bit larger than the midpoint milk cow herd. By 2012, the midpoint beef herd increased modestly to 110 cows. Meanwhile, the milk cow herd increased considerably to 900 cows. Those numbers are encouraging and show that small to mid-size operations are still feasible and profitable. When released, the 2017 Agriculture Census will provide more insight into how the beef cow herd is evolving.
The weather is finally warming up, and it's time to get out your favorite golf clubs. The Angus Foundation is set to host the 18th annual golf tournament on July 9 in Middleton, Wisconsin. Held in conjunction with the 2018 National Deer Angus Show, the event helps fund educational opportunities, research initiatives, and Angus youth. Registration for interested players is open until June 22nd. Adult registration is $100 and junior member registration is $75 a player. Registration includes 18 holes of golf, golf cart rental, breakfast, and a tasty certified Angus beef lunch. If you're interested in the sponsorship, the deadline is June 1st. Visit angusfoundation.org for more details.
We check in now on the latest cattle market news with our market update, brought to you by Cattle Facts.
Hello, I'm Marcus Brooks with the Cattle Facts Update. Cattle on feed totals on April 1st were found to be 11.729 million head, roughly 7% above a year ago. U.S. feed yards with over 1,000 head capacity have contained at least 800,000 head more cattle than a year ago since November 2017. The wide year-over-year margin is expected to moderate over the coming months with lower placement rates. March was the first month of activity in over 12 months, with less placed on feed than in the year prior. First quarter total placements totaled 5.81 million head, just 29,000 head above a year ago, despite March placements being down 9%. USDA placements held up surprisingly well through the first quarter, considering feeder cattle and stocker sales receipts have averaged down 11% versus a year ago. The same feeder sales data is also slightly disconnected from the heifer placement data at first glance. The percent of heifers making up the first quarter sales receipts was higher in 2018 at 41% versus 39.6% last year. According to the quarterly on feed data, the percent of heifers on feed actually declined from the start of the year. On January 1st, the number of heifer and heifer calves on feed as a percent of the total on feed number was 36.2%, the highest since October 2013. Heifers on feed increased by 40,000 head by April 1st, but steers on feed increased by 200,000 head, lowering the percentage of heifers on feed to 35.8%. It is possible that heifers made up a larger percentage of the cattle leaving the yards in the first several months of the year. Heifers on feed increased 275,000 head from October 1st to January 1st. If we assume the cattle were fed on for 165 days, then any cattle placed before October 17th would be marketed by the end of March. Unfortunately, there's no way to break down the data further and determine how many heifers were placed in the first 17 days of October. Logically, at this stage of the expansion phase, heifers should be finding more space in the feed yard. Dry weather and tighter annual calf margins will mean less heifers held back in 2018. Heifers and heifer calves making up less than 36.5% of the on-feed total is viewed as a cutoff for measuring expansion. January was the closest the industry has come to meeting that level in 5 years, but 2018 could be the year that we get there. For the Angus Report and Cattle Facts, I'm Marcus Briggs.
To learn more about Cattle Facts, your leading source for beef industry market information, visit cattlefacts.com. When we return, we visit with Certified Angus Beef Supplies Development Director, Justin Sexton.
Then we share highlights from the Raising the Bar conference that wrapped up in April. The Angus Report will be back after this.
Cattle feeders are underpaying and overpaying for many of the cattle in their pens, but it's the best they can do with the information they have. Justin Sexton, Supply Development Director with Certified Angus Beef, explains what cow-calf producers can do about it. Asking cattle buyers to fill your pens with good black cattle isn't descriptive enough.
There is a tremendous amount of range and variation in feeder cattle, and if we think about just the average calf today, we think about a black steer that's going to gain 3.8 and maybe convert 5.5, 5.7. But the variability around that performance in the feed yard is high, as is that calf's ability to grade and ultimately the performance on the rail.
Justin Sexton says, of all the factors that play into price, genetics might contribute the most to profit or loss, but gets the least attention on the upfront buy.
As you look at the data, between $2 and $4 per hundredweight can be attributed to flesh, fill, point of origin, a number of factors that, again, we think about every day when pricing feeder cattle. But the genetic potential that each of those calves, or ultimately a pen of calves, has a tremendous amount of variation around it.
There's an opportunity for farmers and ranchers to be more active with how they market the value of their genetic selection. Sharing genomic information or previous feeding history is a start.
And the opportunity from a cow-calf perspective is how can I help communicate the investment in genetics that I have made? Because as we look at all of those other traits, flesh, fill, condition, those type of things, all of those are traits that can be observed or previously known. The genetic potential of an animal is largely unknown without either some testing or some background information. And so just encourage the cow-calf and commercial cattlemen to work towards communicating that information to the feed yard customer.
Once the cattle are in the yard, there's little any feeder can do to change the final outcome. Simply put, high-quality beef begins at the ranch level. Visit blackinkwithcab.com and angus.org for more information. Back with the Angus Report after this.
Last month, a record-breaking 65 attendees headed to Oklahoma to kick it with the Cowboys. For more than a decade, the Raising the Bar Conference has built strong leaders and fostered relationship building to prepare Angus juniors for the future. This year, Angus youth bused from Express Ranches to Oklahoma State University, Pfeiffer Angus Farms, Pollard Farms, and more. We caught up with attendees to see what they enjoyed most about the conference.
So we are at the Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where the National Junior Angus Association is hosting the 2018 Raising the Bar Conference. I'm super excited to be here and to host such a big event. The kids were able to participate in a college tour. They were able to talk to several professors, explore the dairy unit and the purebred beef unit.
Ooh, work it on down, work it, and cut.
75% of the kids that attended Raising the Bar were from out of state, not from Oklahoma. It was our largest Raising the Bar yet.
This is my 4th time attending Raising the Bar, and I keep coming back because I really like the leadership aspect that we get from attending these things. And what I think is really cool about Raising the Bar is we go to a different college every time. Each campus has something else to offer for you. It just wants you to raise the bar for your next education, your next chapter in life.
I really wanted to come because while college is a few years away from me, I think it would be a good experience to go look at colleges and also just to meet new people. My favorite part of this so far was going to the AI place. I really liked, being able to see the sonogram that they did of the cow. That was really cool. I got to touch the fetus, and it was really cool to, see and how they collect semen and how they store it as well.
I've attended Raising the Bar since I was 14 and I haven't missed one. I'm 17 now. And I really wanted to come to the one here in Oklahoma because Oklahoma State University is on my list for possible colleges. One of the things I was looking forward to when I came here was the Cowboy Hall of Fame, just seeing the different aspects of cowboy life, and John Wayne, my dad's a big John Wayne fan, so I knew he would like that and I could take pictures for him.
I would tell every high schooler I meet, if you have a chance to go to Raising the Bar, if you're a part of the Angus Association, it's like a leadership conference that's taken at a pace that for a senior in high school, freshman in college, maybe somebody attending junior college, it's a pace that you can really get behind and really take in a lot of information in the time that's given.
We have seen a huge growth. Lately it's been smaller when we've been going to 2 universities, but this year we decided to go to 1 university. So we picked a big university like OSU because kids are really interested in it. It's a big agriculture school and these kids are about to go to college soon. That's what excited me the most, and to see that if these kids decide to go to OSU and come down to this state, that they will enjoy it and they're all together. I think that's the neatest part.
I would 100% recommend this event. It helps you meet so many different people from across the United States.
It's a really good experience for them to meet new people and to really go outside of their community and to, explore different things.
Our junior members truly are the future of this association. Visit angus.org/NJAA to learn more about the National Junior Angus Association events and news. Stay tuned, the Angus Report will be back after this.
Lazy Lane Farm in Virginia is a collection of historic pastures that's home to registered Angus cattle, horses, and crops. Jim Wiley shares how their herd thrives near the mountains of northern Virginia.
Being a professional farm manager, I'm just very happy to be part of American agriculture. I think the backbone of America is the agriculture and always has been. We're at Lazy Lane Farm in Upperville, northern Virginia. We're east of the Blue Ridge Mountains in the northern Piedmont. All these farms have some nice land out front along Highway 50, and then they all run back up the mountains to some very steep fescue-covered mountainsides. Very good tillable land in the flat part of it, and very good grazing on those mountainsides. The first place Lazy Lane bought, it's a Brookmead Farm, and it's a famous old racehorse place owned by the Dodge automobile ancestor, Miss Isabel Dodge Salone. And very successful thoroughbred operation was run here since the late 20s. Cavalcade is buried here. Cavalcade won the Derby in '34. And still there are 8-9 broodmares here, and they sell their yearling colts and fillies every year. In '87, they bought the Ammondale property. Brookmead was the famous old thoroughbred outfit, and Ammondale was the famous old Angus place owned by John Gall, was president of the American Angus Association. We run an Angus operation on the mountain land and some of the land in the back of these farms. It's approximately 90 spring calving cows and 90 fall calving cows. We got a beautiful place put together here, and it took a lot of years to do it. I'm really firm believer in conservation really matters. We're stewards of the land, and we need to hand it off when our generation's done with it in better shape than what we found it. With Lazy Lane here, I was interested in soil conservation very early on. We're at the foot of the mountain. We go up the mountain on these farms. If that water leaves our farm dirty, there's no one else to blame. It's our fault. That water started on us. We started developing all our springs and had gravity feeding into water troughs. Eventually put in culverts and fenced out all the streams. Early on, we went completely no-till drill seeding, and there's no cattle drinking out of streams here anymore, except for a couple of hard accesses into a large pond or something for backup in a drought. This woods is pretty place here. The spring of the year, it's all in daffodils and tulips. I'm happy just to grab some supper and go back through some cattle and drive some of these pastures again and just pause on some of the real pretty spots to overlook the beauty of this farm. I love sunrise in the morning. It's so pretty, and at sunset, it's just very rewarding, and even makes you feel good just at the end of the day after a hard day. Just drive around and see the beauty of this farm. Myself, I've worked here since they started this place in 1982. I've been here 34 years. This is who I am. This is what I like to do. I'm very comfortable in the Angus business. The Angus business has been very good to me, and it's a lot of fun.
You know, Clint, I think Lazy Lane Farms looks like it's straight out of a history book.
It would make for some stunning photos.
And it did. All right, that's all for this week's episode. Visit angus.org to view more episodes from I Am Angus.
We'll return next week at this time for more cattle news and highlights.
In the meantime, you can watch more segments from Angus TV at angus.org. And that's where you can also subscribe to the industry's leading publication, Angus Journal.
Thanks for joining us.